Welcome to the Coach Bryan Moore Show. I'm your host, Margaret Ann Prater, and this is Coach Bryan Moore. We can catch this on Facebook, on the NFHS Network, and on YouTube, released every Wednesday morning. Also, please tune in on Friday nights to the NFHS Network, where you can see our football game broadcasted. Also, I'd like to thank our sponsors before we get started. Of course, Eddie Pruitt Ford. This is the Eddie Pruitt Ford Bryan Moore Show. I want to thank Marmac Real Estate, the agency on Main, Life Church, Peck Funeral Home, and Quorum's Building and Farm Center. Coach, let's just look at this. You're 6-0, 58-21 victory, but it was a tale of two halves. So, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, because you know you're good at anticipating my questions before I ask them. So we're gonna go with offense and then defense. Okay. All right, talking about these two halves.
Are those my parameters right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So first things first. What'd you say the guys at halftime to get things turned around?
Well, you know, that's been kind of the question all weekend, and it really wasn't a fiery halftime deal. At Coleman, I got after him pretty good, but I think sometimes you can kind of go to the well too much on that, you know, and so it was like, you know, we're not playing to our standard. We weren't playing terrible. I mean, we were leading at half, and we had a big 2-minute drive and then a huge field goal from Crawford to finish that half, but we just weren't stopping the run and doing some of those things. But offensively, we were pretty efficient and, you know, really had ran the ball well early, had 2 rushing touchdowns in the first half, so that was big. So we were okay, but we obviously, you know, the tide turned in the second half. But I was proud of the kids the way they came out and finished. I mean, we've been a second half team, and you know, again, if I'm picking a half, that's going to be the one I pick. So we finished games well, and we did it again Friday.
Well, and, you know, on paper, you look at that stat line and not the points scored per quarter, I would swear this game was never close.
Yeah, and they're good. I mean, it just snowballed quickly. I mean, you know, Walker had the interception, and we had a kick return and some big plays. We had an 80-yard run. So there were some things that really switched the momentum in a 12-minute quarter. You know, in high school football to score, I think 31 or whatever it was,
pretty good.
Things happen quickly. So I was proud of the kids, the way that they responded. They continue to do that. And again, our leadership and stuff at half. So it's not always the coaches. You know, it's sometimes, you know, Mookie, you know, at half, or, you know, he said before we went out and kind of broke the huddle at the end of the, warm up, that he wanted to talk to the team and address them. I said, fine, you know, do it. And I just got out of the way. And he took over and did it. And that's when it really gets good. When it's player-led and not coach-led, that's when it's good. We got a lot of that going on.
Well, and I was going to ask, offensively, you know, 2 different teams. What adjustment, did you make any adjustments, or did they just execute better in that second half?
Yeah, you know, 3 of 4, we scored on 3 or 4 possessions in the first half. The one was a miscommunication where JT thought Isaiah was going to sit the hitch down, and he kind of stuttered it down and then kept going, so we threw it right to the corner.
Oh, right.
It's the first time it's happened this year. It can happen. When you give options on a play, that can happen. And so that was a turnover, but otherwise we scored on really every offensive possession. We didn't punt again, and I think we've punted 5 total times this year in 5 games, which is incredible. Yeah. Staying on the field, I think we've had 1 3-and-out this year. And so we've done some really good things. But we turned it on and we ran the ball better. I thought we got them covered up a little bit better in the second half. But one thing I did want to mention that was really good was our pass protection. There were times where they were never close. JT stood back there for like 10 seconds sometimes, and nobody was close to him. So really proud of our offensive line. Sad they're not the player of the game right here.
I know we'll get them. It's coming.
We'll get them. But anyway, they're doing a really good job.
All right. At times, Coach, JT Blackwood almost looked human. And not to say he had a bad performance, he didn't. But his statistics up to this point have been superhuman. Yeah. So what did Russellville do that made him have to work a little harder?
Well, we didn't throw it as much. I mean, first we ran it a lot, and we ran it for 300 yards, which was huge. But they do a good job on the back end. I mean, they're a top 5A team that's really well coached and a lot of staff continuity. Those guys have been there a long time. They're different regarding pressures and things like that, and the coverage stuff on the back end. And they kept everything in front of them. You know, I think we got behind them that one time to Eli for the big touchdown. But otherwise, they kind of capped everything off and did a good job and made us throw underneath. And you saw us throw some check downs to Armadio, and they did a good job. And ultimately, he's going to have to continue to look at that where people are playing him differently. We talked about it last week where Decatur player a few weeks ago was really, pressure, here we come. And then Russell was a little bit softer on the back end regarding, again, trying to keep things in front of him. So people are going to try all kinds of things because he is so good. But he worked through it. And then again, I thought the throw to Eli at the end was huge down the seam to kind of finish the deal.
That was great. All right, we'll be right back. You're watching the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
Hey folks, my staff and I here at Eddie Pruitt Ford would like to thank you guys. We're in our 37th year in business, and we'd also like to thank the Hartselle Tiger football team that the preparation they put in for Coach Moore and his great staff, and especially our kids has worked so hard in the off season to get ready for another great season. Go Tigers!
Hi, we're here with our Eddie Pruitt Ford Player of the Game, Walker Hull. Walker, you've been close to interceptions a couple times already this season, and boy, you made up for it on Friday. You had 2 picks, 2 tackles, and one of those picks went in for a pick 6.
Yes, ma'am.
So what have you done? How did you get to that point?
Really, this off season was I went into it thinking like this is going to be the year. So you got to really bust your tail, every day at practice. So I really worked every day of the summer, and I just tried to work as hard as I could to get to where I am now. So, but I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, so I have to get faster and stronger.
That's great.
Put on a lot more weight. So.
Always growing. That's all right. You got a new defense coordinator. You've got several new coaches on defense. What is your favorite change that they made? Because everybody does everything differently. So what's been the new thing that they've done that you like the most?
Coach Bell, he's a younger guy. I like Coach Newton, but and he brought a lot of intensity. But Coach Bell brings a different intensity. He's like young and hungry, so he's trying to prove himself just like everybody else. So I like the energy he brings to practice, and it gets us fired up for every 11-on-11. Before every competition period in practice, he brings us together and tries to get us fired up. I like that part.
All right, Walker. Aside from yourself, who would you say is the most improved player on defense?
I'd say Jake Haynes. He's really come a long way. He's gotten a lot bigger and stronger. For sure, that's the main thing. He's filled into his role as a linebacker. During the summer, they moved him around just a little bit, but when I see him out there in places for Bull or Peyton or DJ or any of the other linebackers, I'm just as confident in Jake. He's really stepped up, and he's only a sophomore. So
that's awesome. All right, I ask every player this question. Everybody loves game day. What's your favorite part of practice?
I'd have to say probably the team segment. I don't really like the whole fundy or any of that because it's hard for me to focus, but it's important. You have to have it to win. But I'm not a say team. I like getting after it a little bit.
So team is one-on-ones?
Not teams. Like when 1-0 goes against 1D, lines up and just plays football for 16 plays or so.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. And then I'm sure the people at home want to know, what are you going to do after high school?
I plan to go to Auburn University. I don't know necessarily what I want to major in, but I've always grown up an Auburn fan, and that's just been my dream to go to Auburn.
You had a rough weekend.
Yeah, it was. A win's a win, but the perk of being an Auburn fan is every game's a good game, so you never really take any of them for granted.
That's great. Thanks so much for your time. We'll be right back. You're watching the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
We're proud to announce we're now AFC on Main.
All right, and we're back with Coach Bryan Moore. Coach, I know we have a defensive guy that's going to be our player of the game, but we'll get to him. But I want to talk about that offensive line,
Yeah.
the disappointed offensive line now. They led the way for 306 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, they were better. They continue to improve. And it's not just the 5 linemen. You know, it's Reed Ellis, you know, as the 6th kind of bonus lineman that, you know, got the catch against Decatur. And then, you know, also, you know, Zeke. As well, and in the backs blocking too. Some, you know, quarterback run stuff. So those guys have really done a good job. We've seen, you know, most of them are back. All but Ryan Garrison are back, you know, and Mac Harden are back. And those guys are just a year older and stronger, you know, where they could hold up. Last year, it was more about keeping people covered up and just going to the right gap and making sure we were right. And this year it's about push and pancakes and finishing people in double teams, rolling guys out of there. They've been so good in pass protection all year. It was nice to see us run for 200 plus. 300 plus is huge. Our goal is always 200, but I thought that was big. And I thought, you know, early in the game, when our defense was struggling a little bit, it was important to kind of keep the ball away from them a little bit. And I kept telling Will, you know, maybe that's not quite always our game plan, but I said, man, let's just stay on the field. You know, when y'all are calling it, Coach Prater, what are you thinking? You know, let's run the ball at them and try and keep the ball away a little bit.
Well, and going to pass game now, I've got a question about Eli Tidwell. Most of his 2 catches had a 51-yard TD catch. He's been solid all season.
He has, and then blocking too. I mean, we are doing such a good job on the perimeter. Isaiah and Eli are both blocking really well. RJ's blocking really well. I mean, they're doing such a good job out there. That's another thing that we can take a screen. You know, Isaiah almost scored on the screen, and Eli sealed the guy off. RJ kicked one out. It was a thing of beauty. I mean, really. And for the backs too, back swinging out of the backfield, stuff like that. So he's been huge. We knew what kind of player he was. You know, last year we went the whole year and we couldn't get him in the end zone. And finally, it's May Jemison, he broke through and scored his first touchdown. Now he scored 3, you know.
Right.
And so it starts to roll after that. So he's doing a great job. He's a vet. He's a big-time athlete, big-time baseball player. He's been a lot of fun to coach.
Well, and let's talk about Zay Fletcher. I mean, you know, his passes, the receptions were great, but his special team performance this time, I mean, he almost broke all of his returns.
Yeah.
He was like a guy away. You could see the seams start to open up down there.
Yeah, and I want to brag on Caleb Graham, too, that's handled special teams. Coach Graham has done a great job with that. He had a great plan for Russellville. You're right, he had 3 returns. The first 2 were up to midfield, and the last one was an 80-yard return. Was huge. And then the blocking. You know, we're putting all of our best out there. You know, you see Jack Smith out there. You see Landon Blackwood out there. Quarterbacks, you know, guys that we really need to stay healthy, but we believe in those special teams, and we've been winning at such a high level. And then, of course, Crawford being back. But Isaiah is a game breaker back there, and now that we saw a really healthy Rye, you know, we'll see Rye back there too, who's also a guy that can return a kick like he did against Hazel Green last year. So it gives us some weapons in the back.
Well, when you see Rye hit the edge, you know
it's over.
He's gone.
It's a touchdown.
It was great. I want to talk about how great it was to see so many different guys touch the ball.
Yeah.
I would hate to be a coordinator for another team because I was looking at the stats you sent me, and it's just name after name after name after name.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's got to be a good thing for you guys.
And that's part of our game plan. You know, we want touches. We want guys to be happy. You know, the reason Eli and Isaiah block so well is because they're also going to get it. You know, and the reason those backs block is because they're going to get it. I think that's been, we have a very selfless football team, and those are the best. You know, when I told him a story about a kid that I coached years ago that would get a little upset when the quarterback would throw one off of a run. Well, we don't have any of that going on. You know, we have kids that are pulling for each other. That's one thing I watch on Friday nights and Saturday morning is, do we celebrate the success of our teammates? You know, when we score, is everybody running there? We have a period in practice we call pace period where we score against air, and then I tell them to celebrate, not spike the ball or dunk it over the field goal post, but everybody runs together. I think that's huge, is that you're celebrating that guy. So if I go a whole game and don't get a touch, am I still going to be like that? And I think that's huge for our team going forward, and we urge that and really encourage that.
Well, you'll have to go back and watch Walker Hoyle's interview because I interviewed him before you came on, and he was so good at that. He was highlighting his other teammates, and that was something. You can see that at work. We'll be right back after a break. You're watching the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
At Marmac Commercial Real Estate, our focus is providing service second to none. If you're looking to buy commercial property, development land, income-producing properties, or a farm, call the Marmac Commercial team. We provide service second to none. You can reach us at 256-214-2196 or 214-2227, or you can find us on our website at www.marmaccommercial.com.
And we're back with the Coach Bryan Moore Show. Crawford Lane, he's back. How does that make you feel?
Huge. You know, he didn't kick a bunch in pregame. We're still being careful, and we put some parameters on him. You know, we basically said that, you know, you can kick PATs if you feel good. You won't kick off until you feel good. You know, like in the game, it was a little cooler, you know, and so are you warm? You know, kind of where are you? And so every time he went out, I would talk with him, and then nothing outside the 20. So basically, his job is to inform me of kind of where he feels like range-wise. I mean, he can go out to the 40, you know, if he's in, you know, perfect condition, right? But we're not going to do that yet. We're going to continue, and we're going to call the game that way. I mean, we'll, you know, calling the game every time we got inside the 30 or whatever, I would say we're still out of his range, you know, or this is 2-down territory or 4-down territory, whatever the situation was, until we got inside the 20. And then right before half, I thought maybe was the difference in the game, to be honest with you. I know the score doesn't indicate it, but the fact that we went up 17-14 was big because we got the ball back and then scored the first play, and then it became a 2-possession game. And so we kicked that field goal from the left hash. I thought that was tremendous as far as, again, the momentum of halftime, and then, of course, his confidence. At this point, he's healthy. He still feels it, but it's a confidence thing now. And then after the night he had, I mean, he had a sky kick that was a turnover. He kicked the ball all over the place. We kicked off 11 times Friday night, so we had a lot of, you know, room to do that. We kicked off with 3 different kickers. We kicked a field goal with Noah Yates.
Right.
Cooper went in and kicked some, and then Crawford, of course, kicked most. But that's big, you know, as far as the special teams, being able to do that and run guys in and get them game experience. I mean, Noah now has kicked on a Friday night in a big moment. You know, the game was out of reach, but still, that's how I wanted him to start. I didn't want to run him out there in a, you know, 21-20 Decatur game and let him kick.
Right.
I wanted it to be something like that. We could get his confidence going, and then they can start rolling. But Crawford is a huge difference in our program.
Yeah, 3 kickers in a 6A football team. That's
We're very
good.
fortunate.
That's pretty good. 4 turnovers. I'm just going to defense now. You don't see teams lose a game when you cause 4 turnovers.
Yeah.
That was very dynamic.
We have been creating a lot of turnovers on really the last 2 games. I think we've created 8 in the last 2, and that's really big. 6 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, and the kickoff that was basically a turnover too, so you could say 9. Big. I mean, we need to be opportunistic. You know, we struggle a little bit against the run, so when that happens, you gotta go create the action, you know, a little bit. And Bull pulled one out, right? And I was surprised he didn't go score it, to be honest with you. You know, most of the time he picks it up and scores. That kid was right there. But that was big. And then Walker, I mean, that was a man coverage deal. A kid went into a little stand screen and he just jumped all over it, you know, and I thought that was huge. And then the score, that was so big for his confidence because he had given up a pass down the sideline for like 35 yards where he was in good position, but then not only pick 6 one, but also intercept the same pass they had beat him on earlier. I thought that was really big for his confidence.
And I'm smiling big because you just answered the question that I was going to ask. So that's great. I mean, you didn't skip a couple of pages ahead. We're just right on where you're reading my mind. All right, let's rein back in the celebration, though. They gave up 240 yards rushing.
Yeah. I mean, we gotta fix it. We're not far off. Like, it's not, you know, uncovered gaps. It's not misfitting. It can be as small as squeezing a down block, you know, getting our hands on the tackle when we're supposed to keep him off of Mookie, you know, or spilling and fitting it just, you know, half a guy inside instead of being down the middle of a guy. We've got to be a little bit more physical, play a little faster in the box. We're going to challenge them. You know, the good news is that our offense is pretty good, so we can challenge them at practice.
Right.
You know, they can go up against maybe the best offensive line that they see, you know, each week and in practice. Last week, so the 2 games that we struggled against the run were big indoor games, or big weeks where we had to be inside a lot.
Right.
So we had rain against Coleman a bunch early in the week, and we had, and even Coleman was out of school one day. We had a lot of bad weather that week. And then last week too, same thing. And so we need to get outside and push and compete and do one-on-ones and stuff like that. And so this week, with the way the weather is supposed to be, we should be outside every day and finally get a normal week of practice. And I think that's showing up. When we have those good weeks like Austin, we were really good. And then we've had those weeks that were like out of routine, weren't quite as good. So I'm hoping that was sort of the issue.
Great. That's an easy fix. Havoc rate was 30%. Concerted effort. I was talking about Bulls, forced fumble, and then Dylan Green got a fumble recovery.
Big. Dylan's playing more, by the way. We're starting to rotate defensive linemen more. Our goal is to play them about 30 snaps. It's roughly 60 snaps or so on either side of the ball each Friday night. And so if we could play them about 30 snaps, it would be huge. And so Dylan's starting at Maurice Johnson's coming on a little bit. Porter, of course, is playing more. If we can get to 6, we can play, you still probably play Dom and Dalton maybe, 45 or so snaps. But if Dylan and those guys could get 20 of those or 25, that would be huge. You're seeing that show up quite a bit.
And everybody stays fresh.
That's the deal. You want to be fresh in the fourth quarter. That's 6A football, though. You've got to have depth. Like, you can't play at the level you have to play for 80 snaps. That's not real. Not at this level.
Right.
You need to be able to sub guys and keep guys fresh for the finish.
All right, and let's talk about, we hadn't talked about our big 3, Moore, Osteen, and Oden.
Yeah.
They combined for 35 tackles.
Yeah, Trace was in on a lot of plays. Trace is still fighting through some strength things in there, and he's trying to become more and more physical every day. Isaac, early in the game, I didn't think was physical enough. Later, I called him over the sideline and talked with him for a minute, and he really got going and showed back up. So I again, it's a little bit of, all of it as far as the box 6, regarding fits and things like that. We're going to get it right. But those guys are tackle monsters. They're making a ton of plays. And then, Bull and Peyton Steele and those guys, DJ, keep making those plays in the back end. And Jacaleb, too. I want to mention him. Jacaleb has done such a great job. The reason you hadn't seen him much is because nobody's throwing at him.
Right, they won't go to him.
So
he's so
over there. He's over there just kind of disappearing.
Got his own island,
right,
yeah.
and that's great. And that's what we want. So my thing to Jay is just don't get bored.
Right.
You're standing over there for like 60 snaps where nobody's throwing at you. Just don't get bored, man. Just stay locked in. And he did that and almost had a pick on the one time they challenged him. He came up, made some good tackles. So, again, we're progressing. And like we talked about last week, our defense is still, from an experience standpoint, a little bit behind our offense. And they're coming along every day.
All right, we'll be right back. Watching the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
I'm Ray Lampe, Dr. Barbecue, and I'm here to tell you about the Big Green Egg, the ultimate cooking experience. The versatility of the Big Green Egg is unmatched. It delivers big results as a grill, a smoker, and even an outdoor oven. Grill burgers, kebabs, steaks at 800 degrees, slow smoke a perfect slab of ribs, and even bake a crispy pizza. When the doctor cooks, I demand the best, and that's why I cook on the Big Green Egg, the ultimate cooking experience. There he is.
Peck Funeral Home is owned and operated by folks who live in the same communities they serve. Our employees are the heart of our business. The funeral home proudly employs over 30 local individuals. Currently, the funeral home is managed by Jeff Halbrooks, who has held that position for over 20 years. Our goal is simple and has remained the same now since 1929. Peck Funeral Home strives to provide genuine service from the heart.
And we're back with the Coach Bryan Moore Show. Coach, we're looking forward to next Friday. Looking at Athens, I know they're a 3-3 team. We're in region play. They're still second place in the region.
Yeah.
And I think they're a little better than their record indicates.
No doubt.
What
I
do
mean,
you
they
know?
had a game against Muscle Shoals that they very well could have won. That game was a coin toss, really, inside of possession the whole game. Really good skill. Specifically, the quarterback, he played receiver last year, is an athlete. He'll run it 30-plus times in the game. And Coach Gross does a really good job with formational stuff. So, like, we're going to see literally everything. And he's doing that so that you misfit it, and then his quarterback can go score it. And he does a really good job with that, and he did it last year with tackle over sets and double wing sets and all kinds of stuff. They fought their tails off against Muscle Shoals. We got to see them in person, and which was helpful, and their best back wasn't playing, and he'll be back. So that they do a good job. It'll be a challenge. All their goals are still in front of them, too. I mean, they can still win the region championship.
Right.
And, they feel that way. I mean, they've beaten Hartselle back-to-back years.
That's my next question.
But that's important.
Yeah.
That's important to us too. Like, we know that too, and our kids understand this is a rivalry game. Another one. It's crazy how many we have here, but it's another one that really matters. And I think that we'll have a good week of practice and be really excited about it.
Right. I mean, you look, and you were talking about they've beaten us the past 2 years. Before that, we had beaten them 14 years in a row.
Yeah.
But just personal opinion, that was the worst game you played last year.
We played terrible, and that was something, and I don't know what it was. I really don't. I don't know. We got better after that. I mean, we really did. The next week was Muscle Shoals. We played our best football game that next week, and I don't know what it was, but they dominated us. And our kids, believe me, have been told that, and need to rise up to the occasion. But we're excited. Again, we've got some cool home games coming up. Especially with them, and then 2 at the end that decide everything. You know, this 4-week stretch, this back end of the region decides everything. And really, there's 4 or 5 teams that still have all their goals in front of them.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to play for, and it'll be fun to see the scores each week.
Well, and now we're going to go to our Eddie Pruitt Ford fan question of the week. And here we go. Do you think Auburn could use JT Blackwood next Saturday or this Saturday?
Auburn could use a lot. I don't know. Whoa.
That got sent in, and I had to put it on there.
That's absolutely, you know, that was, I don't know. They can't hit open receivers. I mean, they've got guys running open. They can't hit them.
Well, the receivers coach is fired now.
That is, I don't know what's going on, but that is tough. I can tell you this, I've never been in a situation where the quarterback and backup deal, as far as who should start. And I do not envy that scenario at all. Pulling a guy, especially a 3-year starter, and putting, you know, I'm hopeful, I pray that I never have to go through that. You know, because we've always had the older kids have always been good enough to keep playing. You know what I mean? And you didn't have to pull him for a younger one, but that is, what a mess.
And like I said, that was not.
And I love Auburn, but it is,
I know.
That's a tough situation right now.
I know it. And I'm just picking
I do.
All right, well, thanks for a great interview. And you've just seen another week's episode of the Coach Bryan Moore Show. And this week in Hartselle High Athletics, let's start with Thursday, September 30th. Varsity volleyball is going to host the Morgan County tournament here at the high school. Swimming is going to Coleman to an aquatic meet. And 7th and 8th grade football, they're going to host Florence at J.P. Cain Stadium. Friday, October the 1st, we're hosting Athens at J.P. Cain in another region contest in football. Saturday, October 2nd, cross country is going to Gunnersville. And HHS is hosting Hazel Green, Pelham, and Mountain Brook. If you're bored and love volleyball, this would be some matches to want to go look at. Monday, October the 4th, 9th grade and JV football are going to travel to Athens. Tuesday, October the 5th, volleyball is going to travel to Athens. And I think that's going to be it for this week. This has been This Week in Hartselle High Athletics.
Hey football fans, we are so excited to have another year of Hartselle football underway. 2020 season expecting a great year, and we're so excited about Coach Bryan Moore and his family being here. Coach Moore's a great coach, and he's going to lead us to great things right here in Hartselle, but not only this year, but for years to come. Go Tigers!